Have you ever witnessed the moment when a seemingly perfect life cracks and then shatters? Imagine an impeccably dressed million-dollar smile hiding unthinkable heartbreak. Envision a pregnant woman leafing through glossy crib catalogues, praying for the safe arrival of her baby, while the husband she adores whispers sweet promises to another. And then in a single mind-blowing act, she changes everything. This is not a fairy tale. This is a real, raw drama of betrayal, revenge, and triumph. You're about to hear how one wife, pushed to the edge by a ruthless mistress, did the unthinkable. Ready to dive into the chaos? Felicia Harrington was never the type to settle for half measures. As a child of modest means growing up in rural Pennsylvania, she devoured success stories like others devoured romance novels. In high school, while her classmates partied, Felicia studied real estate trends and pored over business books borrowed from the local library. At age 22, she took her first leap of faith, a small property investment that she flipped for a tidy profit in less than a year. In the years that followed, she soared from one success to another like a comet blazing across the night sky. By 29, Felicia had amassed an impressive portfolio under her own brand, Harrington Ventures. Wherever Felicia went, people recognized her signature style, the crisp suits that seemed tailor-made for her slender frame, the steely confidence in her gray eyes, and the radiant burgundy curls that set her apart from the usual boardroom crowd. Yet behind those refined, powerful strides was a person who believed in doing good, who sponsored scholarships for underprivileged youth, and who gave lectures on responsible entrepreneurship. She had everything money could buy. But she also had big dreams that went far beyond wealth dreams of a family built on unwavering trust. So when she fell for Bryce Harrington, it felt like the final piece of the puzzle slid perfectly into place. Bryce, an Ivy League graduate and a budding venture capitalist, had the charm of a classic movie star with warm hazel eyes and a confident grin that spoke of old money. While Felicia's wealth was self-made, Bryce's was inherited, passed down through generations of Harrington financiers. Their marriage, as tabloids loved to point out, merged two fortunes and put them on power couple watch lists from Business Insider to Vogue. From the outside, Bryce and Felicia seemed unstoppable, shining examples of love, success, and philanthropy. They threw lavish charity balls to fund children's hospitals. They sat front row at New York Fashion Week, garnering praise for Felicia's mesmerizing style. They jetted around the world from Swiss ski slopes to tropical private islands, occasionally rubbing shoulders with celebrities like Oprah Winfrey and business moguls like Mark Zuckerberg. And still, Felicia remained the approachable yet radiant star of any room she entered. At first, the Harrington marriage was everything Felicia had ever dreamed of. They were not just lovers, but also business partners, co-conspirators in forging a life that seemed destined for greatness. Occasionally, Bryce's eyes would drift off to admire the attention of beautiful admirers, but Felicia chalked it up to his charismatic nature. After all, she reasoned, a man so magnetic would inevitably attract other people. Felicia believed wholeheartedly in his devotion. She'd never been the jealous type, too busy building her empire to fuss over a fleeting glance or a whispered rumor. That was her first mistake, underestimating the power that subtle lies and well-concealed secrets can have over someone's life. Though Felicia had always fought for her place in the world, she had yet to discover the depths of betrayal swirling right beneath her feet. In this gilded realm of negotiations and board meetings, Felicia would soon learn that the higher you climb, the harder the fall. Felicia wasn't naive. She was simply a woman in love, a woman who believed her business partner was also her soulmate. They never discussed prenuptials at length, mostly because Bryce dismissed the topic. "We have everything we could ever want," he'd say with a playful wink. "No need for complications." Felicia believed him. They formalized their union with a straightforward legal agreement, using Bryce's longtime family lawyer, James Whitmore, a name well known in Manhattan's upper circles, but not someone Felicia had chosen. She trusted Bryce to handle the details, a step she would later come to regret. And so for the early years of their marriage, Felicia thrived. She pictured a future shimmering with possibilities. A child to carry on the Harrington name, a philanthropic foundation that would outlast them both, and a stable of close-knit friends who would stand the test of time. If only she had known that the facade of perfection could mask the darkest shadows. If only she had anticipated how swiftly and violently illusions can collapse. Bryce Harrington was not always the man he appeared to be. For years, Felicia caught fleeting glimpses of an unsettling side phone calls, cut short, suspicious business trips that seldom produced results. Sudden mood swings that never seemed to have a logical explanation. And yet every time she tried to probe Bryce, disarmed her with warmth and witty jokes, he'd pull her close, press a gentle kiss to her forehead, and assure her that all was well. Over time, she learned not to push too hard. Perhaps love had made her blind. Or maybe deep down she knew if she looked too closely, she might not like what she found. One unusually cold May afternoon, Felicia was meeting with an architect about a new residential complex she wanted to build downtown. She smiled politely through the presentation, but inwardly she felt a nagging restlessness. Earlier that day, she had discovered an odd email in Bryce's inbox, glimpsed accidentally as she passed his open laptop. It mentioned Unit 8B and a date and time. That by itself meant little Bryce often handled real estate deals too, but her instincts tingled. Something felt off about the tone, the hush-hush language. Felicia told herself she was overreacting. Bryce was the father of her soon-to-be-born child. She couldn't let paranoia overshadow the joyous discovery she had made just 2 weeks earlier. She was pregnant. Their first baby. For Felicia, the pregnancy was both exhilarating and terrifying. She'd waited her entire life to build this stable family. She'd confided in her best friend, Veronica Wilford, about her suspicions, and Veronica, always the cynic, had warned her to keep her eyes wide open. The morning's meeting concluded, and Felicia walked the architect to the reception area. As she turned back to her office, her phone buzzed with a text from Bryce. "Working late. Don't wait up. Love you." She exhaled slowly, trying to shake off the weird feeling creeping up her spine. Bryce had been working late a lot lately. He claimed it was for a major deal that would skyrocket their finances. But Felicia had already begun to notice that the so-called major deal was absent from the pipeline at Harrington Ventures. She wanted to believe, but a sliver of doubt kept pricking at her heart. That evening, instead of ignoring her intuition, she decided to follow it. Sometime after 9 p.m., she called the front desk of Bryce's office. "Hello, this is Felicia Harrington," she said. Struggling to keep her voice casual, "I need to confirm if my husband is still in a meeting." Mr. Harrington left the building around 7. Mrs. Harrington came the concierge's polite response. Felicia's heart lurched, and a cold flush ran through her limbs. She thanked the staff, hung up, and spent the rest of the night pacing her mind, swirling with anxious questions. Where was Bryce? The next morning, Felicia woke to find Bryce's side of the bed unoccupied. She called his cell, only to be greeted by voicemail. When he finally strolled in around 11 a.m., hair disheveled and tie askew, Felicia confronted him. Where were you?" He waved it off. "Had a major crisis on a property deal. My phone died. I spent half the night in some off-site location. Don't worry about it. It's business." Felicia locked eyes with him, searching his expression for any hint of falsehood. Bryce's face remained unreadable, or perhaps the doubts swirling in her own mind prevented her from fully believing him. She wanted to confront him with the phone call to his office, but fear of an ugly argument and the risk of stress harming her pregnancy kept her silent. If Bryce was lying, she needed proof. This was too big to handle on a hunch alone. Over the next weeks, Felicia was a whirlwind of prenatal appointments and business expansions. She placed an offer on a new property in Tribeca, and to celebrate, she decided to surprise Bryce at his office with lunch one afternoon. She arrived with a gourmet hamper, expecting to find him in conference with his team. Instead, she discovered his office locked the lights off. The receptionist said he'd left suddenly, an hour prior. It was then that Felicia resolved to stop giving him the benefit of the doubt. She might be pregnant and deeply in love, but she was also one of the most astute businesswomen in the city. Gathering her courage, she decided it was time to uncover the truth. What she would soon learn would shake her illusions to the core and spur a drama so explosive that it would shake not just her marriage, but also the entire Harrington legacy. A discreet tip, a few phone calls, and a private investigator costly, but worth every cent for peace of mind. Felicia's investigator, an older gentleman named Joseph Caldwell, specialized in high-profile clientele and knew how to keep secrets. Within 3 days of being hired, Caldwell delivered the news Bryce Harrington was leading a double life with a woman named Marina Holcomb. Marina, 28, worked as a part-time model and social media influencer. According to Caldwell's findings, Bryce had rented her an upscale apartment in Midtown Unit 8B, precisely the location mentioned in the suspicious email Felicia had seen. Caldwell's documentation didn't stop there. He provided a folder brimming with photographs. Bryce and Marina getting cozy at discreet restaurants. Marina stepping out of a black luxury car with Bryce at the wheel. And to Felicia's horror, a snapshot of them kissing on a street corner at dusk, the city lights casting a faint glow around them. The betrayal seared Felicia's eyes. Even more disturbing was the timeline. It suggested the affair had been going on for nearly a year, almost as long as Felicia had been trying to conceive. Tears of indignation burned her cheeks, but Felicia refused to collapse. She was enraged and hurt, yes, but also fueled by an unquenchable thirst for the truth. She made another bold decision. She would confront Marina directly. She wanted to see the mistress face to face, gauge the woman's intentions, and figure out exactly how deep this deception ran. Felicia arranged a meeting by texting Marina from an unlisted number posing as a prospective client for her influencer marketing services. The rendezvous point was a chic cafe in Soho. Felicia arrived first, dressed in a sleek navy dress that draped elegantly over her growing baby bump. She was sipping an espresso, her nerves coiled like springs, when Marina sauntered through the door. Marina Holcomb was undeniably beautiful, tall, lean, with silky black hair and flawless caramel skin. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who believed the world lay at her feet. She slid into the seat across from Felicia, flashed a dazzling smile, and set her designer purse on the table. So Marina began crossing her long legs. "You wanted to talk about brand collaborations?" Felicia folded her hands on the table. "Not exactly. My name is Felicia Harrington." Confusion flickered across Marina's face, and then realization dawned. Her lips curled into a sneer. "Bryce's wife," she said with surprising composure. Felicia felt her stomach churn, but she held her ground. "Yes. I know about your relationship with my husband." Marina shrugged, an almost bored expression on her face. "I suppose you're here to threaten me or bribe me to stay away." Silence stretched between them. Felicia's anger flared at the casual dismissal in Marina's tone. "I'm here," Felicia said evenly, "to give you an opportunity to explain yourself before I do anything I might regret." Marina sipped from a glass of water, her posture unruffled. "I don't think there's much to explain. Bryce and I have a connection, one that he doesn't share with you. He told me about your marriage, how you're too focused on business and trying to prove yourself, that there's no room for real passion in your bedroom." Felicia clenched her fists under the table. Her mind flashed with the memory of Bryce's sweet nothings, his supposed devotion, how supportive he'd been when she told him she was pregnant. "He's my husband," Felicia murmured, her composure cracking. "We might have our challenges, but I love him. And we are having a baby." Marina's lips twisted with cruelty. "Yeah, I heard. Congratulations," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Do you think that changes anything? You waddling around, picking out cribs while Bryce is out living life? You can't compete with me." For a moment, Felicia's heart hammered. She felt tears brimming, but her pride refused to let them spill. She had expected maybe an apology or at least guilt. Instead, she was met with arrogant contempt. "What do you want from Bryce, Felicia?" asked her voice, trembling with anger. "Money." "A ring." Marina gave a derisive laugh. "Please, I don't need his money, though it doesn't hurt. Bryce and I have an understanding. He gave me that Midtown place, yes, but only because he wants to. He's not your puppet." Felicia's nails dug into her palms. She imagined hurling her coffee at Marina, but that wasn't her style. She was Felicia Harrington, a woman who'd built an empire from nothing. She refused to let this mistress see her lose control. Instead, she stood, took a breath, and delivered her words in a measured tone. "You have no idea what you've unleashed. I'm going to walk out of here, but don't think for a moment you've won anything. Bryce and I will deal with this our way." As Felicia turned to leave, Marina called out, "Tell me, Mrs. Harrington, did you pick out a crib yet for the baby?" She gave a theatrical eye roll. "How quaint. Let me guess you chose something from one of those generic baby stores with pastel everything. How ordinary. I wouldn't let my cat sleep in that. Then again, Bryce and I joked about your little shopping spree. We both know the Harrington heir deserves something more. Luxe." Felicia felt as if she'd been slapped. Heat rushed to her face as she forced herself to walk out of the cafe. Once outside, she drew a deep gulp of air, trying to steady her pounding heart. So Bryce had mocked her baby's crib shopping with his mistress. The ultimate betrayal, turning what should be a joyful new chapter in their life into a laughingstock. Felicia vowed then and there she would never be humiliated like this again. She resolved to plan her next move carefully, ensuring that when she struck, it would be with the force of a hurricane. Sitting at her penthouse suite near Central Park, Felicia stared at the slideshow of potential cribs on her laptop. For the first time in her life, her unwavering confidence faltered. The day before, she'd been admiring a sleek, sustainable crib from a high-end Italian brand that boasted organic craftsmanship and a 5-figure price tag. She was prepared to splurge. Her child deserved the best. But now, every time she looked at the baby furniture, Marina's mocking words echoed in her mind. She tried focusing on an upcoming real estate negotiation, but everything felt overshadowed by the revelation of Bryce's infidelity. What burned most was the knowledge that Bryce and Marina had belittled her excitement for the baby. Wasn't he thrilled to become a father? How could he laugh behind her back? A wave of anger struck so potent that she almost flung her laptop across the room. But in that moment, her phone chimed. It was Bryce. "We need to talk. Meet me at home, tonight." Felicia typed a quick response. "I'll see you at 8. She shut her laptop, her heart pounding. This was it, confrontation time. By then, she'd decided it was too risky to stay silent. She needed answers. When Felicia arrived home, Bryce was in the living room, pacing like a caged tiger. The minute he saw her, his face was flushed with guilt. She saw him open his mouth to speak, but words failed him. Instead, he motioned for her to sit down. "I know you know," Bryce finally said, voice low. Felicia's gaze was unyielding. "Yes, I know." "Marina. The apartment in Midtown. The nights you told me you were working late." Bryce lowered his head, raking a hand through his hair. "Felicia, I'm sorry. It was a mistake that spiraled. It meant nothing to me. And now she's threatening to tell tabloids to twist the story." Felicia clenched her jaw. "So that's your concern? A media scandal? That's your main worry right now?" She stood up, crossing her arms protectively over her midsection. "I'm pregnant with your child, Bryce. We are supposed to be a family." Bryce stepped toward her, tears welling in his eyes. "I let my ego and curiosity get the best of me. But I love you. And I'm excited about this baby." "Really?" Felicia asked, voice thick with sarcasm. "Is that why you and your mistress enjoyed mocking me for checking out baby cribs?" Bryce winced. "I never meant it like that." "Don't lie," Felicia hissed. She pulled a crisp photograph from her handbag, a printout of him kissing Marina on a quiet street. She threw it at his feet. "If you're sorry, it's only because I found out." Bryce's shoulders sagged. "I should have ended it months ago. I swear. I've been trying to figure out the right timing. She threatened me, said she'd go public, that she'd ruin me if I left her. Her demands became crazy. I didn't want to blow everything up. I wanted to keep us safe." Felicia's laugh was hollow. "Safe. This might be the greatest risk you've ever taken." Her eyes flashed. "And I don't just mean for our marriage or your precious reputation, but for the mental health of your pregnant wife and soon your child." Silence lapsed, broken only by the muffled hum of traffic outside. For several minutes, the only conversation was the unspoken tension swirling between them. Felicia finally spoke, her tone icily calm. "I've put too much into this marriage to walk away easily. But don't think I'm going to simply forgive and forget. I want a formal post-nuptial agreement. If we have to proceed with a divorce someday, I'm not going to be a victim." Bryce, to her surprise, didn't protest. Guilt was etched in every line of his face. "Yes, I understand," he murmured. "I'll contact James Whitmore tomorrow." Felicia shook her head. "No. James is your lawyer. I'll hire my own. We'll handle this thoroughly." She turned to leave, pausing at the threshold. With her back turned, she added, "And I'm still shopping for that crib. I'll send you the bill once I settle on one that's worthy of the Harrington name." The sarcasm bit deeply. She left Bryce standing there a broken man as she walked to the master bedroom. Sleeping in the same bed as him tonight was unthinkable. Instead, she locked the door and curled up under the covers, tears streaming silently down her face. In the weeks that followed, Felicia juggled an avalanche of tasks. She advanced her business deals, explored legal counsel, and prepared for motherhood all at once. She was determined to maintain composure and not let the world see her pain. She consulted with well-known attorneys, including the famed Gloria Allred's firm, though she eventually settled on a more discreet but equally powerful attorney named Cassandra Liu. While Felicia had been decisive in forging a plan, Bryce wavered. He swore he ended things with Marina, who apparently refused to exit quietly. She texted threats to Bryce, demanded more money, and once even had the audacity to waltz into the Harrington Ventures lobby and demand to see him. Bryce tried to appease her to avoid a scandal that could jeopardize his position in the family business. But Felicia was done playing nice. All the while the baby grew. Felicia's shopping lists expanded from maternity wear to nursery essentials. And with each purchase, she thought of Marina's smug insults. She poured extra attention into her baby's nursery, almost as if furnishing that space was a statement of her unwavering will. She was in control. She was the mother. She would protect her baby no matter what. And then came the final straw that would galvanize Felicia into unleashing her own brand of justice. A mutual friend leaked a piece of gossip Marina was seen boasting at a club about how Felicia's just your basic pregnant wife waddling to baby stores. Bryce can't possibly be satisfied with someone like that. The words seemed petty, but for Felicia they pushed her over the edge. Mocking her was one thing, ridiculing her baby's arrival was another. She decided it was time to strike back in a manner that Marina would never anticipate and that Bryce would never forget. Felicia sat in her home office, gazing at the large window overlooking Central Park. In her hand was the final invoice from the Italian luxury baby furniture brand. She'd selected a crib handcrafted from sustainable wood, lined with organic cotton, with a custom gold embellishment reading Harrington Legacy. The cost was exorbitant, but Felicia didn't flinch. The figure scrawled in bold print on the invoice was the perfect symbol of her retaliation. "Send it to both attorneys," she murmured to her assistant who was waiting nearby. "Cassandra Liu and James Whitmore. Let them see exactly how we plan to handle expenses moving forward." Her assistant hesitated. "Are you sure, Mrs. Harrington?" "That means—" "Yes," Felicia cut in firmly. "Send the receipt and an accompanying note specifying that this is a joint household purchase, our child's crib, paid through our shared account. And make sure to copy Bryce, of course. And you know what?" She paused, a slight gleam in her eyes. "Send it to Marina Holcomb as well. Make sure she's aware." The assistant swallowed hard. This was not a typical day at Harrington Ventures. "Understood, Mrs. Harrington." As she left to carry out the instructions, Felicia leaned back, a grim satisfaction coiling in her chest. The action might seem petty to some, petty in the sense of a direct jab at Marina's earlier cruelty, but more than that, it set a legal precedent. By sharing the invoice with their lawyers, Felicia was ensuring that any future court or negotiation would recognize that Bryce was fully participating in parenting costs. She was formalizing his responsibility in black and white, a chain of evidence that Bryce was also financially invested in the child. In truth, the crib purchase was not just furniture, it was a statement. Felicia was demonstrating that no matter how vicious Marina's jabs became, the child's well-being and Felicia's dignity would always come first. In essence, That receipt was a silent warning shot. You want to mock my crib shopping, fine, but be prepared to deal with the consequences in a legally sanctioned arena. When Bryce received the forwarded email, he immediately called Felicia. Are you serious? He asked, his voice tense with shock and perhaps a hint of amusement. You copied both our lawyers, and her, Felicia's tone was ice-cold. Yes, Bryce, if you or your mistress want to belittle my choices, let's make it all part of the official record. I'm done tiptoeing around this. I have no reason to hide. Bryce let out a resigned sigh. I get it. I understand. It's just, this is turning into a battle. Then step up and stop letting her control the narrative, Felicia hissed. Is she blackmailing you, threatening you? This is exactly why we need the lawyers involved to ensure everything's documented correctly. An uncomfortable silence filled the line. Felicia could sense Bryce's internal debate. Finally, he muttered a clipped goodbye and hung up. She tossed her phone aside, her heart heavy but resolute. Meanwhile, across town, Marina watched her phone blow up with texts from Bryce, from unknown numbers, and from Cassandra Liu's paralegal, who served a polite but firm warning that her alleged slander could result in legal ramifications if she continued to make false statements publicly. Marina was not used to being cornered. If anything, she thrived on attention, playing the role of the victim or the vixen, depending on her audience. Yet now the stakes were escalating. A few days later, the tabloids did catch wind of something, rumors that Bryce Harrington was involved with a certain social media starlet. But due to Felicia's swift legal maneuvers and Bryce's frantic attempts to do damage control, the story never reached mainstream blowout proportions. Whispers percolated through certain circles, but Felicia's proactive efforts stifled the worst of it. Just as Felicia breathed a sigh of relief, the situation took another turn. Marina, desperate for the upper hand, began contacting Felicia's top business rivals. She fed them misinformation about Harrington Ventures' upcoming projects, trying to sabotage Felicia's deals. One morning, Felicia woke to find an urgent text from Veronica Wilford. You have to see the article in the City Finance Post. They're claiming Harrington Ventures is on shaky financial ground. Rumor from an inside source. Check it now. Felicia's blood ran cold. She opened the online newspaper to discover an article proclaiming that Harrington Ventures was over-leveraged, that Felicia was reckless, and that her upcoming Tribeca project was teetering on the brink of collapse. All of it was sensationalist nonsense, but it was enough to scare some of her more conservative investors. Fury welled up inside Felicia. She had no direct proof, but she knew exactly who was behind this. Marina was striking back. Possibly Bryce had shared certain sensitive details with her in pillow talk details that she was now twisting or exaggerating to create damaging headlines. Felicia's phone buzzed again. This time, Cassandra Liu calling to update her about the legal strategy. In a hushed, commanding tone, Cassandra said, "We'll handle these false allegations in the civil arena, but I also advise filing a restraining order against Ms. Holcomb if she continues to harass you and your business. Gather all the evidence you have, texts, calls, everything." Felicia pressed a hand to her throbbing temple. She realized the lines between her personal life and professional empire were dissolving, and with each new development, the tension threatened the fragile balance she was clinging to for the sake of her unborn child. Perhaps ironically, the one silver lining was that Bryce, haunted by guilt, seemed genuinely to regret everything. He became more cooperative with Felicia's demands, offering her access to all his personal accounts and phone logs, promising to help quell the false rumors. He even discovered that Marina had used an old phone password of his to retrieve sensitive emails fueling her smear campaign. This at least provided Felicia with enough to file a formal cease and desist. But the war had only just begun. Marina was no ordinary mistress. She was cunning, connected in the influencer world, adept at social media manipulation. She reveled in drama and refused to slip quietly into oblivion. Despite Bryce's pleas and hush money, she was determined to exact her own brand of revenge. All the while, Felicia had to keep functioning. She had employees who depended on her clients, who needed her expertise, and most importantly, a baby growing inside her. She had no choice but to fight, not only for her business's reputation, but also for her dignity and the future of her child. Behind every sleepless night and every legal document was Felicia's unwavering resolve to protect what was rightfully hers. She'd faced adversity her entire life, clawing her way to the top. If Marina thought a few malicious rumors would topple her, she had another thing coming. Felicia had faced bigger sharks in the business world. Now she was determined to prove that she could weather this personal storm too. And so she turned her attention to the greatest weapon in her arsenal, the truth and a labyrinth of lawyers and documents that would ensure that neither Bryce nor Marina could manipulate her reality any longer. Weeks rolled into months, and Felicia's pregnancy advanced from a small bump to a visible testament of impending motherhood. She found herself watching her reflection in the mirror each morning, equal parts awe and sadness swirling inside. This wasn't how she'd envisioned her pregnancy enmeshed in a scandal with a duplicitous mistress trying to tear her life apart. But each day, Felicia discovered new depths of resilience. She moved forward with the Tribeca project. She held investor meetings, occasionally dodging barbed questions about the rumored financial struggles. Standing tall, she methodically dismantled every rumor, presenting real numbers and progress charts. The ordeal forced her to become an even sharper negotiator, her speeches laced with confidence that brooked no argument. Meanwhile, personal revelations kept surfacing. One evening, over a tense dinner at the Harrington family estate, Felicia confronted Bryce's parents, Edmund and Regina Harrington, about their role in the fiasco. She suspected they knew more than they let on about Bryce's behavior. After all, the Harringtons were notorious for protecting the family name at all costs. Edmund, a stern man in his 70s, frowned deeply when Felicia broached the subject of Marina. Bryce's choices are his own. But let's not blow this out of proportion, he said, swirling a glass of brandy. There's been talk, but nothing to confirm any wrongdoing. A mistress. Anyone can start a rumor. Felicia swallowed her irritation. It's not a rumor. I have proof, and I know you were made aware of this, but chose to look the other way. She slid a sealed envelope across the table containing photos from the private investigator. Regina, elegantly dressed in pearls, gasped softly when she glanced through them. Edmund's gaze hardened, but he offered no apology. You must understand, Harrington men have their foibles. It's part of the family's legacy. But we always stand by our wives and children. Bryce will do the right thing. Felicia's face flushed. His foibles. And do you think I should just accept that you might be comfortable with a certain standard of moral compromise, but I'm not? Edmund raised an eyebrow, clearly unaccustomed to being challenged so directly. Regina cleared her throat, her eyes darting between Felicia's belly and her husband. We want what's best for the future, Harrington heir, she said carefully. If it's money you need, or lawyers. Felicia pressed her palm against her growing belly, a protective gesture. This baby isn't a bargaining chip, Regina. I don't need your hush money. I need respect and honesty from my husband. If that's not possible, I will carve out a future for myself and my child without your help." Regina's face fell. Edmund pursed his lips. "You'll have our support, but I do hope you'll keep the family's reputation in mind. The Harrington name carries weight in this city." Felicia stood, her eyes blazing. "I've earned my own reputation, and it's one I'm not willing to tarnish for a bunch of secrets." She left the table, heart hammering, ignoring Regina's murmured pleas for her to stay. Later that night, as Felicia mulled over the conversation with Bryce's parents, she realized more than ever that the Harrington clan had its own twisted sense of loyalty. She understood that if push came to shove, they would likely rally around Bryce to protect the family name. She needed to be fully prepared to stand on her own. The next day, during a meeting with her lawyer, Cassandra Liu, Felicia explored every legal avenue. If Bryce tries to cast me as an unfit mother, or if his parents try to buy my child's custody, I need a strategy. Felicia said, her voice tense. Cassandra nodded. "We'll ensure the post-nup covers custody details. Child support is non-negotiable, and if they want shared custody, they must demonstrate a stable environment free of external entanglements." Felicia folded her arms. "Marina is the biggest variable. She's unstable, relentless. She wants to see me fail." Cassandra leaned forward, eyes sharp. "We can file a restraining order if she makes direct threats. As for her trying to sabotage your business that's under investigation, with enough evidence, she'll face serious legal consequences." A flicker of determination flared in Felicia's chest. Maybe it was her maternal instinct kicking in, or maybe it was the unstoppable business titan in her refusing to yield. Either way, she was not about to let some cunning mistress and an apathetic father-in-law define her future. Little did she know Marina was planning another bombshell of her own, one that would push Felicia even further to the brink. In the hush of a Sunday evening, Felicia was preparing a healthy dinner for herself, determined to give her baby all the proper nutrients. She was chopping vegetables in the gleaming modern kitchen of her penthouse when the doorman called up Mrs. Harrington. "A Miss Holcomb is here insisting she speak with you." Felicia's hand froze the knife, hovering over a carrot. "Marina, she's not allowed in this building. She's refusing to leave. She says it's urgent." Felicia inhaled sharply, glancing down at her phone, considering calling security. But something compelled her. Maybe it was a chance to end this madness once and for all. "Tell her I'll meet her in the lounge." Moments later, Felicia stepped into the building's private lounge, a stylish space with plush sofas and tall windows. Marina stood in the center, wearing a designer coat and glaring at Felicia with stormy eyes. She wasted no time. "I know Bryce broke it off with me, but let's not pretend I'm out of the picture. I have something you'll want to see." Felicia folded her arms, staying a few feet away. "You have 30 seconds, and then I'm calling the cops," Marina smirked. Tisk, tisk. So hostile, especially for a glowing mama-to-be. She withdrew a set of photos from her purse and held them out. Felicia's gut tightened, worried about what new horror lay ahead. But when she glanced at the pictures, she froze. They showed Bryce at a lavish hotel suite, apparently from months before, engaged in a very compromising position, not with just Marina, but another unknown woman. Possibly a second mistress. Felicia's throat went dry. She'd expected betrayal, but the photos indicated that Bryce's disloyalty ran deeper than she imagined. Her voice quivered with controlled fury. "What is this another affair?" Marina shrugged with an air of feigned nonchalance. "I thought you'd want to know your perfect husband has more than one skeleton in his closet. This one is from last year in Monaco, during a so-called business trip. And guess what? He used Harrington Ventures funds to foot the bill." Felicia's pulse pounded. If that was true, Bryce had not only betrayed her personally, but also jeopardized her business. Using company funds for an illicit liaison opened the door to potential legal and financial scrutiny that could destroy everything she'd built. Marina studied Felicia's reaction like a cat cornering a mouse. "I'm willing to keep these pictures under wraps, but I have a price $50,000 a month for at least a year. That's on top of the hush money Bryce is already paying." Felicia's lips parted in shock. "Blackmail." Marina smirked. "Call it whatever you want. 50 grand is a drop in the ocean for you and Bryce." Felicia paused, considering the ramifications. Paying would be enabling Marina's extortion. Not paying risked her going public with evidence that could cause massive damage to her marriage, her finances, and Harrington Ventures' reputation. The baby kicked as if sensing the tension. Felicia steadied herself, remembering her vow never to let fear dictate her actions. She took a calm breath and fixed Marina with a resolute stare. "I'm not paying you anything. You want to destroy Bryce's reputation? Go ahead. But I'll make sure you get dragged down with him, harassment, blackmail, and any other charges I can throw at you. My lawyers will bury you." Marina rolled her eyes. "So righteous." "Fine. But you've been warned. If I leak these, the business world will never see you or Bryce the same way again. And let's not forget the damage it might do to that precious baby of yours." Felicia's chest tightened. She wanted to lunge at Marina, to scream that she'd never mention her child again. But composure prevailed. "Get out, and don't set foot near me again." After Marina stalked off, Felicia pressed her back against the wall, heart pounding. She dialed Cassandra Liu, immediately summarizing the horrifying new development. Cassandra insisted they meet the next morning to formulate a new plan. That night, Felicia barely slept. She found Bryce dozing on the couch, the only neutral space they could coexist in these days. She kicked his leg, waking him abruptly, and thrust the photos into his hands. "What the hell is this?" she demanded. "You lied to me even more than I realized. You dipped into Harrington Ventures funds for—" That Bryce rubbed his bleary eyes, groaning as he recognized the images. "Felicia, please, it's not what it looks like." "Stop lying," she burst out, tears threatening to spill. "It's exactly what it looks like. And now Marina is blackmailing us." Bryce's expression twisted with shame. "I was in Monaco for a legitimate conference. I did meet that woman, Madison was her name. It was a stupid drunken night and I never saw her again. But I used my business card. I swear I didn't realize it until afterward. I panicked. I wrote it off as a client dinner or something." Felicia stared at him, her chest constricting. "You have no idea what you've done." Bryce lowered his head. "I'm so sorry, Felicia. Let me fix this." "You can't fix this," Felicia snapped. "You've endangered everything. This is my life's work, Bryce. The Tribeca project. The expansions. I have contracts with major banks, with investors who rely on my credibility. And you're telling me you used corporate funds for your fling?" Bryce tried to reach out, but Felicia jerked away. She felt disgust, heartbreak, and fury swirling within her. "You promised me you ended it with Marina. Turns out you've had a string of affairs. If these photos go public, I won't just lose you, I'll lose the respect of the entire business community. My baby's future, our baby's future, will be overshadowed by your stupidity." Bryce's eyes glistened with tears. "Let me talk to her. I'll do whatever it takes. Just, please don't leave me." But Felicia had reached her limit. She didn't want to see him, talk to him, or even breathe the same air. She stormed into the master bedroom, locking the door. Collapsing onto the bed, she allowed the tears to flow. She clutched her belly, whispering to her unborn child that they would survive this, that they would come out stronger on the other side. In the upcoming days, Felicia's entire being hardened with focus. Her strategy with Cassandra: preempt Marina's bombshell. They began quietly cleaning up any financial irregularities at Harrington Ventures. Felicia made calls revisiting expense logs, ensuring that any questionable charges were documented and corrected. She braced for a media fallout. If the pictures surfaced, she'd have a counterattack ready. Still, it felt like a race against time. Marina was unpredictable. The tension weighed on Felicia's soul, threatening her health and the baby's well-being. Every day, a new complication emerged: investors who spooked easily, colleagues who looked at her with pity, employees whispering about the rumored mistress. Felicia pressed on, determined not to falter. But events were careening toward a climax. And as the pressure mounted, Felicia clung to the knowledge that the darkest hour often comes before dawn. 2 weeks later, the moment Felicia dreaded arrived. In the early morning hours, an online gossip site known for scandalous scoops published an article titled "Secrets of a Harrington Affair, Mistress, Money, and Monaco." The piece included blurred versions of the damning photos, referencing an unnamed high society husband who misused company funds to finance his adulterous escapades. While it didn't name Felicia or Bryce directly, the details were obvious enough for anyone with half a brain to deduce the identities. Within hours, the story exploded. By noon, Felicia received a deluge of messages, some from concerned friends, others from business associates, and more than a few from opportunistic reporters seeking a comment. Bryce's phone must have been ringing off the hook as well. Marina, it seemed, had gone for the kill. Felicia cancelled her meetings for the day, barricading herself in her office with Cassandra. They drafted an official statement, carefully worded to downplay Bryce's role at Harrington Ventures and emphasize Felicia's unwavering leadership. Felicia authorized Cassandra to hint at legal action against the gossip site for defamation, knowing full well it might be a losing battle, but determined to appear resolute. The next morning, a swarm of paparazzi gathered outside Harrington Ventures, hoping to catch Felicia or Bryce walking in. Felicia had no choice but to stride past them, ignoring their shouted questions about the affair and her pregnancy. Cameras flashed, capturing her stoic expression and growing baby bump. Veronica Wilford, her closest friend, phoned her that evening. "This is insane," Veronica said. "I'm worried about you. You're about to pop. Stress like this isn't good for the baby." "I know," Felicia murmured, eyes closed. "But I can't hide. If I go into seclusion, it'll look like I'm admitting guilt. I have to face it head-on." The scandal's reverberations were severe. Some investors pulled back from the Tribeca project, citing the drama. Felicia's PR team scrambled, assuring everyone that her finances and leadership were impeccable, that the scandal was personal, not professional. Gradually, her consistent track record helped salvage a portion of investor confidence, but the damage was done. One morning, Felicia arrived at Harrington Ventures to find a small protest outside, just a handful of misguided social media activists holding signs reading "Boycott Cheaters" and "Ethics over Greed." Felicia shook her head in disbelief. She realized this was no longer just about one mistress. It had become a symbol of corporate misconduct in the public eye. Amid the chaos, Bryce tried repeatedly to contact her to have heart-to-heart talks to mend the fractures. Felicia granted him a few short conversations, none of which ended well. The severity of his betrayal was too immense, his repeated pleas too hollow. She felt a smoldering resentment each time she looked at him, remembering the heartfelt dreams she once had for their family. Now everything felt tarnished, yet some glimmer of positivity emerged ironically, because the scandal forced Bryce to make a firm stand against Marina. Fearful of losing his family's legacy entirely, he filed a lawsuit against her for defamation and blackmail. Publicly, he took responsibility for misusing company funds, claiming it was an oversight and promising restitution. This partial confession somewhat softened Harrington Ventures' image, painting Bryce as a flawed individual who was stepping up to atone for his mistakes. Privately, Bryce also sought therapy. He recognized that his reckless behavior stemmed from deep insecurities and a craving for constant excitement. Felicia approved of his therapy, but remained cool, maintaining a distance. She'd begun to see a possible future for their child that might not include a happily ever after marriage. She needed more than half-baked apologies. In the meantime, Marina vanished from social media, presumably under the weight of mounting legal troubles. The last rumor Felicia heard was that Marina was negotiating a settlement with Bryce's lawyers. If so, Felicia had no intention of participating. She refused to reward blackmail. That was Bryce's mess to clean up. Still, the emotional toll was colossal. Felicia found herself quietly sobbing in the shower some mornings, overwhelmed by heartbreak. She felt a pang each time the baby kicked a reminder of the innocence in all this. She tried to keep her stress levels down, but each new headline or phone call triggered more tension. Her doctor warned her about hypertension and advised rest. But how could she rest when she was holding the entire empire together? The final straw arrived at 8.5 months pregnant. One afternoon, as Felicia was leaving a negotiation to finalize the Tribeca project's new financing terms, she nearly collapsed from dizziness. Veronica rushed her to the hospital, where doctors ordered bed rest, alarmed by her elevated blood pressure. Lying in a hospital bed, strapped to monitors, Felicia felt a wave of vulnerability, unlike anything she'd experienced. She'd always been the unstoppable force, the woman who overcame every obstacle. Now her body was telling her, "Slow down, or risk your baby's health." That night, Bryce visited, looking pale and contrite, as he entered the hospital room. For a moment, Felicia allowed him to hold her hand. She didn't have the energy to push him away. "How did we get here?" Felicia whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. Bryce stared at her sorrow, heavy in his eyes. "My fault," he admitted. "I did this to us. I'm so sorry, Felicia. I'll spend the rest of my life making it right if you let me." She closed her eyes, exhaustion overtaking her. "Maybe we can't fix this. But for the baby's sake, we have to find peace." Bryce nodded, tears spilling freely. "Our child deserves better." And in that moment, there was a fragile understanding. Neither of them knew what the future held for their marriage, but they shared a common goal. They wanted a healthy baby. That child would be the catalyst for every decision moving forward. Felicia gave birth to a healthy baby boy named Alexander James Harrington on a crisp autumn morning. She held him close, tears of joy flooding her eyes. For a moment, the entire nightmare with Marina, the swirl of rumors, the heartbreak, none of it mattered. All she cared about was the tiny human swaddled in her arms, the living embodiment of innocence and possibility. Bryce stood by her hospital bedside, overcome with awe. In that moment, any bitterness Felicia felt softened, if only slightly. She saw the genuine love in Bryce's eyes for their child. Maybe there was a flicker of hope. But reality soon intruded. A day later, Felicia's attorney arrived with final drafts of the post-nuptial agreement. As Bryce signed, he acknowledged that if he strayed again, or if any further financial misconduct occurred, Felicia would be entitled to a decisive majority of their shared assets. Child custody agreements were also spelled out, guaranteeing Felicia primary custody if they ever separated. Bryce signed every page without protest, each stroke of the pen a penance for his betrayal. Meanwhile, Harrington Ventures weathered the scandal. Over time, news cycles moved on, fresh scandals arose to take the public's attention. Felicia's unwavering leadership and successful real estate ventures helped restore confidence. She rebranded portions of the company to emphasize transparency and ethical investing, a subtle nod to the drama she'd endured. Marina's name faded from the headlines. She settled with Bryce out of court, the details